Is the United States of America still speaking in two voices when it comes to the Indian diplomat Devyani Khobragade? There has been a statement of regret from the US Secretary of State John Kerry, but an extremely sharply worded statement from the prosecutor in the case, ironically somebody also of Indian origin, Preet Bharara, basically saying that several of the reporting accounts of what happened to Devyani have been incorrect, and actually insinuating that India has not expressed a single amount of outrage over the alleged mistreatment of the domestic help of Devyani, Sangeeta Richards. Joining us now this extremely sensitive time for India-US relations is the Foreign Minister Salman Khurshid. You have promised Parliament that you will in a sense protect the dignity of our Indian diplomat at the center of the storm. Now you have these two statements at variance coming from John Kerry and Preet Bharara. We believe that US Under Secretary Wendy Richards has also had an extensive conversation with Indian Foreign Secretary Sujata Singh. What is your assessment of these contradictory responses emerging from the United States of America?
I think we should just stick to Secretary Kerry's point of view. He deals as far as India's relations with the US is concerned. He's the last word, of course subject to the President's point of view. He represents the President's policy vis-a-vis India, and I think we should just stick to that. I would be ill-advised to be responding to individual in different capacities.
You're saying Preet Bharara is irrelevant? He's the prosecutor in the case.
As far as we are concerned, we deal not with him, but we deal with the State Department, we deal with the Secretary of State, and I'd rather leave it at that level rather than to have a competition on what is the correct law to be applied in this matter. I don't think that would be fair.
But do you then imply here that as far as you're concerned, India is basing its response on what John Kerry has said, in which case John Kerry has expressed regret? Is that good enough?
No, I think he's had a conversation. I'm sure that he knew that that conversation was not the last conversation that he will have. I did have a message. I wasn't in Delhi, and I couldn't speak to him last night. He's traveling in Asia Pacific, and I imagine that there will be an opportunity for us to speak later in the day, perhaps tomorrow, when we have a convenient slot for us to speak. And I would want to really say something once we've reached some level of understanding and he's able to get a readout of what has actually happened. I'm not going to respond to instances or statements or positions that's taken by anybody else in the US.
But Preet Bharara does occupy an official position of some importance. He's the prosecutor in this case, and he's basically implying that Indians and the Indian state have showed very little outrage for the rights of also an Indian national, Sangeeta Richards. After all, he's arguing that Devyani is not the only Indian national. What about her rights? He's also justifying the evacuation, which is the word we've used, of Sangeeta Richards' family, saying that there was a very real apprehension that she would be mistreated, that her rights were being violated here in India.
Well, I can understand if somebody has concerns about the rights of an Indian citizen who happens to be on their territory. But my understanding of international law, for that matter anything, does not include bringing in family on a disputed question. We still don't know what exactly will be the final outcome. She is, after all, an Indian citizen. She has an Indian passport, which we have recalled, and therefore she is without a passport unless the US government provides her with adequate documents for her legal presence there and for travel. She is really without a passport today, and in the normal course they should return her to her home country, which is not what they have done. Now, I don't think there are allegations of human rights violations. If anything, we could suggest that the manner in which our diplomat has been treated not only is in a sense departure from diplomatic courtesies and immunities, but also departure from the fundamental basic level with which you treat people, even if they're accused of such matters, but the manner in which you deal with them. She was not a danger, she was not a threat, she was certainly not a violent person. For having to do and to have done all that they have done, it seems to be a little bit far-fetched, and it would be difficult for me to accept that coming, even if it came from a prosecutor. I would like to hear this from the State Department.